hey, this low back injury naturally is going to take course in that 6 weeks and you should be pretty much back to normal. At the 2-week mark, people are getting frustrated because they're like, why is my back still hurting? And it's like, things don't just heal overnight. And as you can see, even some of the stuff like cartilage in particular, that doesn't really heal. Doesn't get much blood flow. And even same with tendons.
So basically, if people say have backache, would it be a mixture of some of them usually, or you would like classify it as one of those?
It depends. Backache after training or just in general?
Let's say in general.
In general? Well, we don't really know the cause of like non-specific back pain. There's so much money and research going into it. It's a very broad topic to just be like, yeah. If anything, I'd say for that is DOMS versus low back. Like everyone loves a chest pump or like biceps and that sort of thing. But then after deadlift, I get a lot of people that are like, oh, my back hurts. I'm like, yeah, you just did like 100 deadlifts. Like your back's going to be tight and pumped. Like it's okay. If it's still sore after a week, okay, then let's bring it back in. But that first 48 hours, I'm like, just let it ride. All right, so this is more for me. And things that might be helpful if you do come and see me or any clinician in particular. Given the nature of what we do, ideally I would suggest try and find a clinician that understands what you do. I previously, injury-wise, had seen multiple physios and chiros that had no idea what I did, especially with snatching and the demands of it. So to have someone that understands that will always make your rehab and recovery a lot better. So for me, things that are like real pertinent, and I'm going to ask anyway, but if you know when, so was it a particular incident, like you came off the rig and you heard a pop in your shoulder, or like you jumped off a box and you felt something pull, twing, that, or did it take time? Has it been progressing over the 3 to 6 months from a heavy spike in volume or something like that? When's it worst? Morning, night, after training, before training? Things like that do matter and they do direct me to something faster. Has it a previous injury? What was done about it? Obviously, we get a lot of previous injuries, and if you can tell me what rehab was done or what treatment was done, that means that I'm going to save, hopefully, you time by not repeating the exact same thing if it didn't really work. There's nothing worse than wasting money, especially at this time and age. What pisses it off? Bottom of a kipping pull-up. That traction versus loading into a snatch, that compression versus traction, that makes me think differently in terms of shoulder injuries, for example. Or a deadlift versus a squat. Like if someone's squatting, the low back hurts and then it doesn't hurt in the deadlift, then I'm going to have a little bit of a different train of thought for that. Your training history overall, what program you do, if you know it, how long have you been training, stuff like that. And then obviously your sleep quality and life stresses play a huge role in what we do. All right, so done with the science, and let's get on to what's actually useful to you. All right, warm up. The most underpaid thing that I have ever seen in the entirety of my existence, and I'm also one of the worst for it. So it works, and it really works well if you do it well. So here's why it works. Heart rate up, blood flow to tissues, oxygen delivery to tissues. Everything warms up, everything moves better, and it's the good path to start with. Once you start warming up too, the synovial fluid in your joints, so that is like a lubricant. So when you're at rest and cold, this is not I'm just gonna use this more as a descriptor than it's like 100% science. It's like, think of more like a gel, like it's a thicker gel, like it moves a lot slower and that sort of stuff. As you warm up, that's gonna change and it's gonna become more like WD-40, it's gonna become more like a lubricant. So that knee, that feels quite stiff, hopefully you should start warming up as you do. Movement prep. If you're gonna squat. Like I see people doing, it's an example, banded clamshells. And then they're gonna go and do like heavy overhead squats. And I'm like, maybe just overhead squat before you start. Or just start squatting in general before it. Like, try and do what you're gonna do in a pattern progression before you build up. Because with that too is core body temperature and tissue temperature don't actually match. So like, yeah, you may feel warm after jumping off the Echo bike, for example, for 2 to 3 minutes. But by the time you're ready to squat, your hip capsule's not quite there, for example. So it takes like another 10 minutes, 15 minutes of specific squatting to actually warm up that capsule and make it feel better. Like, does anyone ever squat and like your last 2 sets feel like the absolute best and you're actually like, oh, now I'm actually warm? Yeah, that's because that is a longer sequence than what the first just core temperature is. So that's why I try and can get people to warm up as much as possible beforehand so that you feel good going into it. What it's not, and I guess this is a bit more cliche stuff, so 20 minutes of foam rolling, I'd say CrossFit's sort of really gone away from that now. And I mean that for a warm-up, not pre. Like if you're coming in 10 minutes early and you just want to have a roll around, please do it. Money, that's what makes you feel good, that's what helps get you on the mindset, then do it that way. And coming back to the banded exercise, like I see people doing little like, just for example, like banded clamshells, nothing wrong with them, but then they're gonna go and do a 1RM. And I'm like, this doesn't match that. Like there needs to be more of what you're gonna do in preparation than just doing a few clamshells, chucking the bar on your back and then just going into heavy squats real fast.
Question, where would you put abs work on that? Like
Which work, sorry?
abs.
Apps, as in like tracker apps.
Core.
Oh, abs.
Crunches, yeah, abs, yeah.
Depends on what I'm doing. If I don't have any direct ab work, I don't really do it too much.
You wouldn't use it as well.
Oh, I would, but like if I'm doing toes to bar, for example, which has a lot of like core in it, then I will be progressing from like a hollow hold, kipping like straight leg raises, knee tucks, stuff like that. But if I'm squatting, I'm not going to go and specifically target abs because it's more, that's going to be locked in the middle. And then the last thing is people, and this is one of the worst things I'm for, doing the least amount possible to save reps. Love it. It's like, nah, I don't want to warm up because I want to save it for the workout. You will have a much better workout if you are breathing heavy before you go into it. For example, if you've done Fran, 2159 thrusters into pull-ups, if you go into that cold, you are not really ready until that last set of 9. And it's like, if you were breathing heavy at that first 21, you'll find that you'll rip through it much faster. Where did that just go? Sorry, give me half a second. So for me, my warm-up as a general is like 10 minutes. How I structure it and how I sort of structure it here is machine, 3 to 5 minutes. Get that blood flowing, get the heart rate up. That's your general stuff. General movement prep, full body stuff. So dowel, rotations with lunges, just trying to get movement induced globally. Then I'm going to be a little bit more specific. So if I'm doing squats, for me, I'm smashing the hips. Some people struggle with ankles, smash your ankles. Whatever you need to do, that's going to be a little bit more specific to benefit that session. And then I'm just straight into that build up. Shouldn't be too much longer.
The first phase machine, what machine do you mean?
Like the Echo bikes or rowers, whatever you have. Like we only have the rower at TMC, so I'll jump on the rower for like 3 to 4 minutes. And then also too, even with machine, like if I'm deadlifting, I'm going to row. If I'm squatting, I'm probably going to be on the bike because the deadlift is very similar to the hinge on a row. So even then I can be more specific with the machine on that. Cumulative into total loading. So when I look at your training, it's not the day, it's the whole year. I used to program at my old gym, and I would always map out a whole year of cycle and then break it down from there because we centered around obviously the open, being in CrossFit. So that's how I would structure it. How if you can structure it, I don't know, it depends on what you guys do, how you release your program, but we have it at least a week. I like to look at it a week out. It gives me something to structure my week around. Because it is a factor of that external loading. So you might look at some days and be like, okay, sweet, we have heavy this, low intensity this, high intensity this. I'm going to go here, here, and here. So then I know that these 3 days are going to cost a lot. So then I'm going to structure my recovery in the other days or within those days, those workouts. And I can just chill in those workouts a little bit more because I'm going to put more effort into the next day. Because it's the internal load, external load, and that's going to give you that whole state. Because the other thing too is there is a diminishing return. You can train as much as you want, but there's going to be a point at which you can't get any more out of it. And then there's the thing called minimal effective dose, which is basically how little you can do to create an adaptation, which is quite surprisingly small for some people. I do that with bench because I like to bench once a week, and I literally do 3 sets of bench. Or I build up a little bit, 3 sets of bench, my last set is drop set. That's all I do for chest. and I'm then sore for like 2 to 3 days, but that's my minimal effective dose for it. So really trying to find that optimal training volume for you is very specific to you, and that takes time. All right, so you have been training hard and you're starting to feel like shit, essentially. This is a little bit more technical and me being pedantic, but there is a difference between overtraining. A lot of people use the term overtraining, but there is a bit more nuance in that there's sort of like progressions to it. So overreaching is really the first stage, and I would say that's where most of us live. And that's really, you create enough stress on the body that you're able to recover your performance in a few days to weeks. Once you start pushing longer and longer, and this is done over more of a time course. So for example, someone wants to take it to the next step and go from just regular RX to RX plus. They start doing more RX plus workouts, and they just spike their volume and they start doing all their workouts at RX plus. At the same time, they, for example, have a child, so then their sleep goes down because they're managing that. Compound that together, and then they add in a financial stress, extrapolate that over, say, 6 months of worsening sleep, increasing training volume, decreased appetite, and all the rest that goes with it. That's when you start getting to more the overtraining. And that's where you get into more multi-system. So that's where you get more hormonal changes, you'll get terrible sleep, mood alteration, that sort of stuff. And the easiest way to remember it is the 4 H's. So happy, hungry, horny, healthy. So happy, obviously it's mood dependent. If you're always down in the dumps, depressed, pissed off, upset, and you're training hard, that could be one of the first signs. Hungry is loss of appetite. If you're starting to lose your appetite because you're training so much, then that's a pretty key marker to be aware of. Horny, so obviously sex drive is an important one, heavily controlled by your hormones. So if you are finding that you're decreasing sex drive because of your training, that is real. I have experienced that before, like years and years ago when I was trying to push hard for the Open in 2017. I had all of those. And then healthy is the last one. So healthy, it's more, you're getting infections more regularly. So upper respiratory tract is your common one. So getting a lot of cold, flu and viruses, even within the normal mix, especially in winter. But that's a big one to be aware of. If you're normally pretty healthy and then you've done all this extra training and starting to get more recurrent sickness, then that's a big one to pay attention to with that. Scaling, my favorite. I do it every day.